Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready to dive in.
Awesome. So last time we got those MySQL records up and running in Tkinter Treeview. Displaying, inserting, even deleting right there in our app.
It was pretty cool seeing that all come together.
It was. But imagine you've got tons of data, like rows and rows of it, staring at this massive table. Not exactly user-friendly.
No, not really. It'd be a bit overwhelming.
Right. That's where pagination comes in. Think next page buttons, browsing data in nice, manageable chunks. We see it online all the time.
And today we're bringing that same smooth scrolling to our Tkinter apps.
Exactly. I actually came across some code snippets from plus2net.com. They've got this step-by-step guide for implementing pagination, and they use a student database as their example, which I thought was perfect for us.
It's a really clear approach, breaks the whole process down into 9 steps.
9 steps. Okay, maybe we should take this one step at a time. Where do we even begin with pagination?
Well, like most Tkinter projects, we start with our imports. We'll need Tk for the tree view, of course, then create engine to make that connection to our MySQL database.
Makes sense. Those are familiar from our last deep dive.
Yep. And then, interestingly enough, we'll need the text module.
Wait, text? I thought we were dealing with SQL queries here. Why do we need that?
It's all about security and flexibility. The text module helps us create something called parameterized SQL queries.
Parameterized?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Sure. Imagine filling in the blanks in a sentence. Instead of embedding values directly into the query, we use placeholders.
Placeholders, so it's like a template for our query.
Exactly. And these placeholders get filled in later with the actual values. This helps protect against SQL injection.
Ah, so it's like adding a shield around our database.
Exactly. It prevents malicious code from sneaking in and causing havoc. Plus, it gives us more control as we move between pages of data.
Okay. Smart move. So we've got our modules imported, security's in place. What's next on our pagination journey?
Next, we connect to the database. The code uses create engine for this. And it's really important to get that connection string right.
Oh, I know that feeling. One tiny typo and it's game over. Database just laughs at you.
Pretty much. But once that connection's solid, we can move on to the pagination logic itself.
Okay, the heart of the matter. Hit me with it.
So pagination relies on limits. We need to know 2 things. The total number of records in our table that's NOREC in the code. And then how many records we want to display per page, which is our limit.
So limit is like setting the size of each page in our data booklet.
Exactly. And NOREC tells us how many pages we'll have in total.
Got it. Limits, check. Database connection, check. Bring on the Tkinter.
All right. The code starts by creating our main window called MyU.
Ah, yes, our trusty Tkinter window. Home base for all our UI magic.
Right. And it also sets up a string variable called mistr.
If I remember from our last deep dive, that's to display our SQL query information, like a little behind-the-scenes peek.
Exactly. Helps us understand what's happening with the query as we navigate between pages.
I love that transparency. But Windows setup, we can see our query. How do we get the data to actually display in a user-friendly way?
That's where the MyDisplay function steps in.
This is where things get interesting. Tell me more about this MyDisplay function.
So this function dynamically fetches the data. It uses something called an offset.
An offset, what's that?
Think of it as a starting point. Imagine a long list of student records. The offset tells the function where to start grabbing data from.
So if our limit is, say, 5 records per page, the first page would have an offset of 0, right?
Right. The second page would have an offset of 5, the third page an offset of 10, and so on.
Okay, so the offset moves along with each page turn. It's like a bookmark telling us where to start reading.
Perfect analogy. And then the MyDisplay function uses that chunk of data to populate our tree view.
Now, about the tree view itself, what kind of setup are we talking about here?
Well, the code sets up columns for ID, name, class, mark, gender, all nicely organized. And it gets even better. It specifies the width and alignment for each column.
Ah, so it's not just a jumbled mess of data. Presentation matters.
Absolutely. But how does MyDisplay actually fetch the data?
Yeah, we were talking SQL queries before. I'm guessing they're involved.
You bet. The code constructs a SQL query represented by the variable Q, and this is where it gets clever. This query uses those offset and limit values we talked about.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Walk me through this cleverness.
It dynamically builds the query using those values. So it might look something like select from student limit 0, 5. That grabs the first 5 records.
So for the next page, it would be limit 5, 5.
Exactly, and so on. By changing those values, we control which page of data we're viewing.
Wow, that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
But what about navigating between those pages? We need those previous and next buttons, right?
Of course. And the code handles that beautifully. It dynamically enables or disables those buttons.
What do you mean by that?
Well, let's say you're on the first page. There's no previous page to go back to, so the previous button is disabled, but the next button is active, ready to take you to the next batch of data.
That's so smart. It prevents users from clicking buttons that lead nowhere. No frustration, just smooth sailing.
Exactly. And remember that Mr. Variable we set up earlier? It's not just for behind-the-scenes stuff. It actually displays valuable information to the user.
Oh, right. We can show the constructed SQL query and the neck and back values. That's really cool.
Transparency is key. So there you have it, all 9 steps to set up pagination in Tkinter.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I'm still eager to see how this all comes together with that student database example.
Well, then let's dive into that next. Okay, so we've laid out all the pieces of the pagination puzzle, ready to see how they fit together with our student database example.
Absolutely. Let's bring this thing to life.
All right, so picture this. You've got your student table in your MySQL database, full of student IDs, names, classes, marks, the whole shebang. Let's say we want to display 5 records per page.
5. Yeah, that's a good amount. Easy to digest.
Right, so the code first figures out how many records are in that student table. It does this with a simple query. Let's say there are 22 students in our database.
Okay, so with 5 records per page, we're talking a little over 4 pages of data.
You got it. Now, when our Tkinter app first launches, it calls that MyDisplay function. And remember, it starts with an offset of 0.
Right, so we're starting at the very beginning.
Exactly. The MyDisplay function constructs our SQL query, which in this case would be select from student limit 0, 5. It fetches those first 5 student records and displays them neatly in the tree view.
Okay, I can see it now. But what happens when I, the eager user, click that next button? How does the code know to grab the next set of students?
That's where the offset comes in again. Remember, our limit is 5, so clicking next increases the offset by 5. The MyDisplay function does its thing again, but now with a slightly different query. Select from student limit 5, 5.
Ah, so now we're looking at students 6 through 10. It's like turning the page.
Precisely. And this continues as you click next. Each click increases the offset by 5, bringing in a new batch of students.
So going forward is pretty straightforward. But what about when I want to go back and review some students I've already seen?
The previous button works the same way, just in reverse. Clicking it decreases the offset by 5. So if you're on the third page with an offset of 10, clicking previous takes you back to the second page with an offset of 5.
It's all starting to click now. These buttons and the offset are working together to make this seamless navigation.
It is pretty elegant, isn't it? And don't forget that feature where the code disables the previous button on the first page and next on the last. Keeps things nice and clean.
Like it knows where we are and where we can go. Pretty cool. So we've used this student database as an example, but this pagination technique can be applied to, well, pretty much anything, right?
Absolutely. Think product inventory, customer details, financial transactions, anything with a lot of records. Pagination can really make a difference.
My mind is already racing with possibilities. But are there any other tricks to make this even more powerful or user-friendly? You mentioned some potential enhancements earlier.
There are always ways to improve things. We could upgrade our database connector. Instead of the basic MySQLDB, we could use something more robust like MySQLDB.
Okay, so a potential performance boost there. What else?
Remember how we were talking about searching for specific students? We could actually build a search bar right into our display.
Whoa, wait a minute. A search bar that filters within the paginated data? That would be awesome.
Right. You type in a student's name, and the tree view instantly updates to show only matching results. Super user-friendly.
Now you're talking. I've also seen some websites display a loading animation while the next page is loading. Could we do something like that?
Totally. Visual cues like a progress bar are great for user experience, especially if fetching the data takes a little time, lets the user know something is happening.
I love those little details. It's amazing how we've gone from just displaying data to creating this sophisticated interactive system.
It is pretty cool. And you know what's great? Many of these concepts we've covered will be useful for our next deep dive, too.
Oh, what are we tackling next?
We're going even deeper into Tkinter's capabilities by exploring how to display records from a MySQL table. It builds on what we've learned today.
Sounds like the perfect next step. Well, listeners, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive so you don't miss our upcoming episode. We'll be uncovering even more Tkinter secrets. Until then, happy coding.